Hi everyone, in today's video I've just got a very quick little kind of sewing hack for you. So if you saw my last video, you will have seen me showing you how to make a bag strap where you use some webbing and you have some like lobster claw clasps and a D slider. My embroidery machine is a combined sewing and embroidery machine. So if I've been doing lots of embroidery projects and then I want to do some sewing, I just change the foot from the embroidery foot to a sewing foot, change my thread, and then I can just carry on and sew. And that's what you'll have seen me making in last week's video. Now I've been making quite a few bags lately for my other small handmade business, and what I did was I made all the bags first because they were all embroidery projects and they were all made in the hoop. And then once all the bags was done, I then just switched the foot out on the machine to a sewing foot, changed the thread, changed the bobbin thread, and then I made all the straps for all the bags. But while I was sewing and I was stood there one day watching, an embroidery project stitch out, I just got to thinking, why don't I just make a little embroidery file for the stitching element of the straps? And then that way, when I have finished making an in the hoop project, all I have to do is just put, say, a 4x4 hoop on the machine and just get the embroidery machine to sew the strap for me. Using a bean stitch alphabet font that I got free from Creative Fabrica and using Embrilliance Essentials, I just put a couple of letters together to form a stitch that I can use on my strap and just get the machine to sew the webbing together for me rather than having to change the sewing foot, if that makes sense. So you would still put the strap together in the same way. You would start off by getting your webbing and sliding your webbing through your D slider. But then instead of having to swap a foot out, which I have to do because my machine is a combined machine, and for now I was just trying to think of another way. Instead of, changing the foot out, this way I just change a hoop. It might be as broad as long. One might not be any quicker than the other. But if you don't necessarily like machine sewing, this might be an alternative way, closing up straps for bags by just doing it all on the embroidery side of your machine. Just thought I would share it with you, and then I'll leave it with you to decide whether you think it would be beneficial or not to use. So I'm in Embrilliance Essentials and I've just got a 4x4 hoop loaded. I have already saved the 2 bean stitch files that I'm going to use on my desktop just to save some time. But the bean stitch file is a free file from Creative Fabrica, so everything will be listed in the accompanying blog post. So if you're watching this on YouTube, go to the description, click on where it says see more, click that will expand the description box. And I think the very first thing under the description of the video says my website and blog, and that's the link. Go over to my website, click on the blog tab and look for this blog post. But as I say, for now I've just saved them, the 2 individual files on my desktop. But I've got the folder open, so I'm just going to show you. This is the folder that I downloaded from Creative Fabrica. It's called Bean Stitch and it has a number, but everything will be linked for you so that you can find it easily in the blog post. And in this folder, I think there are 4 different sizes. There's a 1-inch font. Now these are individual stitch files, so this isn't a font that you can install in Embrilliance and type letters out to create the word. You have to bring each letter in individually. And the reason I also chose a bean stitch was because I wanted it to be quick, but I wanted it to be a secure stitch for my webbing. So I didn't want to use a satin stitch that was going to take forever, you know, going all the way around. But I wanted something stronger than a basic stitch, okay? So as I say, in this folder, I think it comes in 1 inch, 2 inch, 2.5 and 3 inch. So I used the letter L in the 1 inch, and I used the letter Z in the 1 inch. And I've just dragged them onto my desktop just to save some time. So I'm now going to drag both of them and just drop them onto my Embrilliance mat. So these are 2 individual stitch files. They're not a font, as I say, that you can load into Embrilliance and use as you would, you know, any other font where you say type a word or you type a letter and it shows up. These are just individual stitch files. So that's my letter L and this is my letter Z. I also wanted something that would be about 1 inch wide and less than 1 inch high, because the majority of the webbing that I've been using on my bags is 1 inch wide or less. So obviously I want the stitching to be less than that so it sits comfortably on the webbing. So this is my letter Z. So the first thing I'm going to do is rotate it so it's horizontal. And you can see here, this is my 4x4 hoop. So each one of these squares is 1 inch. And you can clearly see, if I put this up to the top of the box, it's 11/16 in height. So it's, you know, it's a lot less than the inch, which is fine because that will work on either width of webbing that I use. Don't worry about this line here, that's a jump stitch. Okay, now you could just leave it at that and then use the other letter to go top and bottom. If you want it to look like it's a rectangle with a diagonal in the middle, then if you select this one, right click on your mouse and click copy, and then right click and paste, it will put a copy directly on the top. So if you go up to the top of the page here, you've got these 2 boxes, and if you hover over it, one says click vertically and one says click horizontally. I think it's the horizontal that I need. So if I click the horizontal, you'll now see that it's flipped that second Z that I rotated, and now I've got like a cross in the middle as well as the 2 vertical lines. It doesn't matter that this is going to stitch twice, it just adds for extra security. So now I'm going to get my letter L, I'm going to rotate it so it's horizontal, and I'm going to position it over the top, and then just using the arrows I'm going to squash that down so I've got a line there. Again, if I select that letter L, if I right click and copy and right click and paste, it puts a copy directly on top, and then I can drag the copy down. So if I zoom in on this, if I go up to my stitch simulator and I set it to stitch, you'll see what's going to happen. So it's going to do the bean stitch, it's going to create a jump stitch to do the vertical and the diagonal. Then it creates another jump stitch because obviously I've duplicated this Z, but that's fine. You can either trim the jump stitches or just leave them. You're not going to see them if you're using a thread that's matching your webbing. And then it's created the last line. So I've effectively got what I showed you how to sew last week on the webbing, which I did on my sewing machine, but I've got an actual stitch file for it now. So if I just zoom out, I'm going to select everything. I'm going up to the top of the page and go edit and group. And then I'm just going to hit the arrow to deselect the stitch simulator. And I'm going to put it just in the center of my hoop for now. So all as I did from here, I went to the top of the page and I went File, Save Stitch File As. I waited for the save box to load. I gave it a name. I saved it onto my desktop as a PES file because that's the format I use, but you can change it in any of the formats to suit your embroidery machine. I'm not going to save it again because I've already saved it. And then from there, I just dragged that file onto my embroidery USB stick. So now I'm going to show you a piece of the video that I took of the embroidery machine actually stitching it out.